Hello, welcome to a bonus edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So I want to talk about Bill Maher, the atheist who's in love with Israel. How could one of the most prominent atheists in sort of American political culture, this guy who's been on television for like forever, since the 90s, the guy who got canceled because he said the 9/11 hijackers were brave, the guy who did a whole documentary about how evil religion is. This guy, he's like a total shill for Israel. And he had recent comments on his show on Friday, criticizing the Trump administration for not striking Iran, and essentially blaming the Trump administration for many of these protesters being killed in Iran. And it's just so disgusting. But I'm going to play the clip and then we're going to discuss. But before we get into it all, I need you to do something for me, folks. It's so easy, so simple. Even a child could do it. Even a Democrat could do it. I need you to subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. It should be available, this beautiful podcast. And if you are listening on the YouTubes, like and comment. It helps me greatly in the algorithm. I would greatly appreciate it. So please do it. It's greatly appreciated. So, like I said, Bill Maher, this guy who's like this pot smoking guy. By the way, he acts like pot smoking is still like edgy. Like, he talks about, I smoke pot. I'm Bill Maher. I smoke pot. Okay. I've never been married. Okay. Aren't I edgy? He's like, you're a pot. Okay. You're a pot smoker. That hasn't been edgy since like the 1980s, maybe the 1990s. Everyone smokes pot. That's not even like it. People don't even have pot these days. Like, if you go to parties, if you're young, high school, college, that's not the drug people are taking. They're taking pills. They're taking lots of different things. It's not marijuana. That's like an old person's drug at this point. That's barely even a drug. It's almost as socially acceptable as like alcohol, but like less so. It's like not even like the smell is terrible. There's not even like a taste factor with some alcoholic drinks, depending on the type of alcohol you're drinking. But Bill Maher, he still acts like he's like this edgelord because he like smokes pot. He's such a boomer. But that's not my problem with Bill Maher. I support pot legalization, even though I'm not the biggest fan of marijuana. But my issue with Bill Maher is he's like this prominent atheist. He did this whole movie called Religulous, a pretty good movie, talking about how evil religion is, Christianity, Islam, even a little bit of Judaism, believe it or not. Talking about how, the world would be better off without religion. Which, if you can think that if you want, that's okay. I think I'm a believer for the most part. I think I'm a believer. A little complicated, but I think I'm a believer. But I totally understand the arguments against certainly organized religion in a lot of ways. And I think Bill Maher's movie, Religulous, is a pretty good movie. It's a good documentary. It's funny. I enjoyed it. It makes some good points. But this guy makes this movie. He's been on television for years making fun of religion, particularly Islam and Christianity, but religion as a whole. But he's also like this huge like defender of Israel. It's like, what? Israel is an ethno-state that has a state religion, Judaism. Okay. A lot of the things that are happening in the Middle East, a lot of the controversy, a lot of the animosity between the Arabs and the Jews has a religious, tenor to it. A lot of the reason why there's all this friction in Gaza and the West Bank is because a lot of Israelis believe this land is supposed to belongs to them because of God. And like Bill Maher is like okay with this. Like whether or not you support Israel or not, or you blame Israel or you blame Hamas versus Israel, whoever you think's more at fault in terms of the conditions of Gaza. Like, make no mistake about it, there are certainly people in the Bibi Netanyahu administration who want to ethnically cleanse Gaza and take the land for religious reasons. They think the land belongs to them because God promised them the land like a bunch of fucking years ago. Okay. So, Bill Maher supports Israel. He's a crazy Israeli fanatic, and he criticized the Trump administration on Friday for not fully backing the protesters. And I'm going to play the clip now. He says some other ridiculous things. I'm going to play the whole clip, and then we're going to discuss.
To stand up to him, that kind of thing. I mean, here's a question I would like to ask the people in your party.
Sure.
Iran, I mentioned it in the monologue. This is kind of a big thing, and I thought, we've seen these demonstrations in Iran before, but this was bigger, and more people have died. But I think maybe more people have died because he said he was going to help. This looks like a bay of pigs to me. This looks like America's going to come and help you. Where is it? Remember the Kurds in '91 when they thought they were going to get help from America? Vietnam could make the same claim. I mean, a lot of people have felt let down by us. I thought Trump was different. Where are you on this? Because all these bodies that I see, these body bags in Iran, I think a lot of those people went in the streets because they thought, oh, he said he's got our back this time. Where's the help?
Well, the generals have told us that short of sending in a massive number of troops, it will be another Iraq.
Well, then what did he mean when he said?
I don't know, but if you look at it from a larger, perspective, because of Israel, this is one person's opinion. Because of Israel, and President Trump's backing of Israel, the Middle East is safer than it has been in 20 years.
Absolutely.
Hamas is on its knees, Hezbollah is on its knees.
I gave him credit for that,
Iran no longer looks invincible. And you know who is applauding us every step of the way? Not out loud, but the Arab countries.
Look,
every one of them.
If Venezuela causes Cuba to fall, if he somehow gets Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran all to be not these horrible places they were, he should get a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
But
first off, Senator Kennedy, I believe of the state of Louisiana, he's very funny. And when he said he didn't know what Trump meant by that, even I got to laugh at him. He's a very funny senator. I'm not the biggest fan of him politically, but he's very funny. And he's, comes from a good state, Louisiana, I believe. But, so a couple things about what the idiot Bill Maher had to say. First off, he says Trump would deserve a Nobel Peace Prize if he took out, the government in Cuba, Iran, Maduro. It's like, what? That's all neocon, wet dream bullshit. This guy, you're Bill Maher. You were one of the leading voices against George W. Bush and the Iraq War. Go look at the tape. I'm not going to play the clips. There's so many clips of it you can find on YouTube. But Bill Maher destroying the Bush administration for getting way too wrapped up in foreign affairs, specifically in the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these ridiculous countries. And now Bill Maher is blaming Trump for these protesters in Iran being in body bags because Trump had the audacity to mind our own business and to focus on the United States. And there's no... Look, and the reason why Bill Maher, and he even, he acknowledges what Senator Kennedy says by saying essentially because Trump has sided with Israel, the Middle East is the most stable it's ever been. The reason why the Middle East is unstable, not necessarily the biggest reason or the only reason, but certainly a reason, and a big reason is because Israel got a little bit out of control, folks. Obviously October 7th was a tragedy, terrible thing. And you can understand why, October 7th was a traumatic event for the Israeli people. No one should, diminish how awful the events of October 7th were. And I don't do that on that podcast. No one should anywhere. There's footage of what happened. The footage is awful. Hamas is a terrible terrorist organization. No one should, diminish the impact that can have on a country. It was their version of 9/11. So I don't want to, obviously Hamas is a big reason why the war in Gaza even happened in the first place. But one could argue, and I'm pretty sympathetic to this argument, that the reason why these attacks on October 7th happened was because of how Israel was treating Gaza leading up to October 7th. People have likened it, what Israel was doing to basically an open-air prison in Gaza. They weren't, they didn't have any real political rights in Gaza. They didn't really have a true, right of self-determination. Economically speaking, they've been under total duress. Israel does not allow, they weren't allowing, the free movement of people in Gaza. You had to go through all these checkpoints to even leave Gaza because of Israel and the blockade. It was just, Israel did not treat Gaza well. They weren't not allowing the people of Gaza to govern themselves. Now, I'm not trying to take away agency from the people in Gaza. They did elect Hamas, I believe, in 2007-ish. Now, that was almost 20 years ago. Many of the people weren't even born yet that live in Gaza now. when Hamas was elected to power. But the point is, Israel was not treating Gaza well. They weren't. And you could argue that's what led to October 7th. Now, that doesn't justify October 7th because Hamas targeted civilians on October 7th, which is just awful. You can't do that. I'm sure some military targets were also targeted, but they were also killed civilians and they kidnapped civilians. That's not to justify it, but you have to understand what was happening there. So you could say, because Trump is backing Israel, there's peace. It's like there's kind of peace. But you're also saying that you want to strike Iran. Well, that's not peaceful. Trump has been trying to negotiate with Iran, but the problem is that Israel wants regime change, and Israel keeps trying to look for pretexts to get the United States involved because Israel can't do regime change by itself. That's why in the summer the pretext was the nuclear facilities. We have to take up the nuclear facilities. And Trump bombed one of their nuclear sites. He claimed it was super effective, and then he got a ceasefire because Trump does not want an Iraq War 2.0. And Senator Kennedy acknowledged that, thankfully, on Bill Maher's show, as you heard in the clip, that the generals, people in his administration, is telling the president that if we actually try to do regime change in Iran, it would be an Iraq War 2.0, and Trump doesn't want to do that. Because, to give Trump credit, and I've been a little bit critical of his foreign policy, Trump is not a neocon. Even what we did in Venezuela, even though I'm a little bit skeptical of it and don't like it on the face of it, we didn't do regime change in Venezuela. The regime is still in place. We just kidnapped their president. But the vice president is now the president, and the regime is still in place. We haven't done regime change in Venezuela. Now, I was skeptical because the day after we kidnapped the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, Trump was saying that we were going to run Venezuela. But so far, that we haven't run Venezuela. The regime has been running Venezuela. Now, they're doing whatever we want them to do. I mean, the Trump administration is basically directing the Venezuelan government. But as of now, we're not literally running Venezuela. So, Trump is not a neocon, and I don't think Trump does want a protracted war in the Middle East because of what happened to the Bush administration. Just from a political standpoint, it would be a disaster. And again, to get back to Bill Maher, the fact that there's the only reason Bill Maher is pissed off at the Trump administration for not striking Iran during all these protests, which have partially been instigated by Israel and probably the United States, if we're being honest, is because he wants Israel to not have their top. They want Bill Maher and the Israel Firsters, people like Ben Shapiro, Mike Levin, Ted Cruz. They want Israel's top opponent in the region to be decapitated, which is the Ayatollah in Iran. Iran funds a lot of Israel's opponents, and some of these opponents are truly bad people. People like Hamas, Hezbollah. No one's defending these groups. No one's defending Iran, but it's none of our business. Iran is not a threat to the United States. Okay? Just because we're allied with Israel and Iran is a threat to Israel, that doesn't mean Iran's a threat to the United States. It's that we're not the same country. Israel is not the 51st state, folks. I know people like Ben Shapiro and Bill Maher, it seems like, want to pretend that's the case, but it's not the case, folks. So, anyway, I just thought the clip was pretty telling, and the fact that Bill Maher also said that Trump would deserve a Nobel Peace Prize if he starts overthrowing all these dictators, in theory, that could, getting rid of some of these dictators might be good, but it's none of our business, folks. And Trump got elected to not, focus on domestic issues, not foreign policy issues. And one of the reasons I think Trump's approval rating has gone down the last couple of months is because the administration seems like it's too focused on foreign policy, not domestic policy. So hopefully the administration can correct course, and hopefully Bill Maher stays angry at the Trump administration for not totally doing Israel's bidding. So, anyway, I just wanted to expose it. Bill Maher, the prominent atheist, is in love with Israel, folks. Who would have thought? But anyway, I digress. That's it for today. We should be back tomorrow. Again, please subscribe, whether on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I greatly appreciate it. And again, if you are listening on the YouTube, like and comment helps a lot. We should be back tomorrow, folks. Hope you have a good night. Bye-bye.